Now people know me as a person who says we're not just going to talk, we're going to talk, and then we're going to move into something. And so what I'd like to see happen is when we get out of this conversation that we have some deliverables on how we can work together. But not just across the city, but let's be the leaders in it across the nation. Chief Craig.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for the invitation. I know you reached out, invited me to the meeting. I'm honored because it couldn't be a better time to start the conversation. It's always been a good time, you know. So I got to kind of digress, look back where I came from, where I worked, some good, some bad. And so my framework is very different. As I oftentimes told many members of my staff is that when you grow up in an organization, it's very difficult to see that crack in the ceiling because you see that crack every day. Right. And so when you see the crack every day and then someone from the outside comes in and says, see, you got a crack in the ceiling. I didn't know. And so while I started my policing career here, I had the good fortune to leave to see the world from another set of lenses, the good and the bad. And so when we talk about police misconduct, we talk about brutality, we talk about making comments to the media, I think it's important that you understand my framework. Now, it's no secret, I mean, we joke and we laugh about the Hollywood Craig persona because LA is a media capital. It is truly Hollywood. And probably Chief Bryant, who's now in New York, second time round, probably was very effective in really turning the view of the LAPD around that had lost its luster. It was one of the premier police departments that at some point just went down. And what Bryant effectively did was garner the media, the support, keep that relationship going so that the police department could tell its story. Now we know in many of these departments across the country, police chiefs work for mayors and city councils and are sanctioned. And they may want to say some things, but if they say the wrong thing, and Ralph knows this very well, you're done. You're just absolutely done, especially if you're not on the same page as the person that appointed you. You're done. So I'm going to fast forward up from the LAPD and probably go right into Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, in 2001, they had a civil unrest. 14 African-American men over a 2-year period were shot by the Cincinnati police. They were shot. On the 15th shooting incident, there was a civil unrest. In comparison to LA, Detroit, not close, but yet there was a civil unrest. And so they, like so many major cities, came under federal oversight. They also did something that was very unique, and I call it a best practice that so many cities in America could replicate, is they entered into a contract with the community. And in that contract, it was a contract that said, this is what we as a community expect. You probably know, like I know, many times in years past, police departments tell you what they're going to give you in the community. It really has to be a two-way conversation. What kind of policing do you want? I remember growing up in the LAPD, and we had all these operation handlers, you know, going in and trying to eradicate South LA, rock houses. And so we'd go in with tanks, with booms on them. You saw it, Batarang and all of that. You would think, on the surface, well, the community was glad to see the LAPD come in with these tanks and hit these dope houses because it was drive-by shooters, organized gangs. They were not. They didn't like the LAPD. You fast forward to Detroit, we came in with large numbers of police officers, and we saw the images over television. And many of the people in those communities applauded, praised the work of the police department, including those who had handcuffs on. Very different. So I just wanted to hold that thought for a minute. But then going into Cincinnati, there's 15 African-American men. So I come into Cincinnati, consent decree, or federal oversight was done. The community contract was in place. And I was then hired as the first African-American police chief and the first outside police chief in the history of the city. But I was only number 14. The 14th police chief in a 210-year history. These things all matter. The Cincinnati Police Department primarily was led by those of a German Catholic descent. That was the history. They all went to the same high school. Although Ralph and I went to the same high school. But all went to the same high school, so there was a culture baked in the Cincinnati Police Department.
What high school y'all go to?
Yeah. We went to Cass Tech.
Oh.
Only high school. Renaissance. I like that my sister did. She broke the family rule. But
The same year?
no, I'm not sure.
You look a little older.
I am older. But I appreciate you saying I'm a little older. I got special work coming up this year.
All right.
Back in about 3 weeks. But needless to say, so I get to Cincinnati. Certainly a lot of what I learned in both Detroit and Los Angeles, I was able to impart, but build on this really an elevated bridge of building community relationships. Certainly the wounds of Cincinnati were still there. It was closed, but when there was a shooting incident, they opened. So the one that comes to mind, and I always tell this story, some may have heard it. So I hadn't been in Cincinnati that long. They have every year an annual Black family reunion where African Americans converge in downtown for a celebration. And on this day, a number of young people converged in this family event armed with guns. So they came in with guns, they were shooting, they were running through downtown. And one of the Cincinnati police officers, who was white, because we've got to talk about that narrative, because that's the narrative that's driving everything today. White police officer chased this young 16-year-old African-American male, and there was a struggle at some point in front of a Fifth Third Bank headquarters downtown. And during the struggle, you could see where the young man had a gun pointed up, and the officer was on top. And at some point, the officer used deadly force. And as that decision was made, the gun dislodged from his hand. And when you saw the video that was aired on all the news stations, it appeared that there was an execution. So I did something I never did, because it was important for me to do so, because I knew different. I had a video also, but I had a video that showed the beginning to the end, not quite what was being depicted on television. And I knew if I hadn't done something, we're going to probably have a civil unrest. And now as you hear this story, you didn't hear about it. A 16-year-old being shot by a Cincinnati police officer. So this was in 2011. So I went to the family, met with the mother, and I invited her to come to police headquarters to see the video. Of course she couldn't, but her family did, her friends did. Brought them in, showed the entire video. It was tragic. Anytime a police officer has to use deadly force, it's tragic. And many times police officers have a hair of a second to make a decision, some cases, not all. Hair of a second to make a decision to shoot or not shoot. Sometimes it's the right decision, sometimes it's not the right decision. In this instance, unfortunately, because it was a loss of a 16-year-old, it was the right decision. And the video certainly depicted, the full video, that there was a struggle over the gun, and the officer did fire the round, fearing that he was going to be shot. And after the round struck the little boy, the gun was dislodged. I would tell you, not one issue following that shooting. Now, one thing Cincinnati did as part of this community contract, one thing Cincinnati, this is all predates Ferguson, transparency. Okay? And what transparency means is that the police chief, the city manager, and the mayor stand together within 24 hours of that shooting incident. 24 hours. And why is that important? Because you want to know. To say nothing is not an option anymore. Right. To say nothing is not an option. Right. Now, that doesn't mean that when we say something, you're going to necessarily agree. And I'm going to bring up to a real issue here that's still pending out of Dearborn, because I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, I grew up here in Detroit too. You know, I was told never cross the railroad tracks into Dearborn. But if I did, I was going to get jacked up. 19. My welcome to the Detroit Police Department was long before my friend Ralph, because Ralph probably was in grade school in 1977. But here's the reality of 1977. It was 10 years after what? The worst civil unrest in American history, the most violent. And so Coleman A. Young, the first African-American mayor, knew what? He said, and what you hear today, novel concept, the police department needs to look like the city it polices. Yeah! So, if you come to my office, I'd like you to come to my office, there's a picture of my 1977 cabinet class. 95% African-American and about 25% female. We led the nation in hiring female officers. And still today, we have more female officers than any department in America in terms of major cities. Good news. So, I joined DPD, 19 years old. I'm excited. My dad was an MP in the Army, wanted to be a DPD officer, but like many African Americans of his time, he was not welcome, he was not hired. He could serve this country. He was a military police officer, and they told him no. But he became a Detroit Police Reserve because during the riots, my dad served this city as a Detroit Police Reserve working out in the 10th precinct. And as I already have, when I graduated from the police department, I went to the 10th precinct, the neighborhood I grew up in, real community policing. So, my first day on the job, getting in a scout car, 19 years old, I looked over at my partner who didn't look like me. He probably had 25 years on the job. He looked at me and he said, "Juan, I don't want you here. You just sit there and be black. You're not going to drive this car. You're not going to touch the radio." True story. So I went home. I told my dad, I said, "I don't know if I can do this." I said, you know, he told me stories of being jacked up by the Big Four. In a pool hall. Being jacked up and treated poorly by the police. I said, I don't know if I want to do this. I wanted to be an automotive engineer. I graduated from CAS studying automotive technology. Why am I doing this police thing? He said, no. You're strongly about wanting to change this institution because you know there are problems. There's problems in the communities with African Americans and the police. You represent that change. And I bring it up because we're talking about what's happening today. You represent the change, so I stayed. I got past that. But here's the deal. I knew as a police officer I could affect only so much change. I could be a good police officer working in the neighborhood I grew up in, you know, embrace people in neighborhoods, work with people in neighborhoods, but at the end of the day, I was a police officer. So I formed a goal early in my career, 20 years old, probably then 23, that I would be a police chief. Right. And are there things that police departments know early on about officer-involved shootings? Yes, they do. Can we talk about every item? We cannot. And most of you get that, but you need to say something. I'm going to give you another example. After I got here, police officer, and Ralph may remember this, police officer doing his job, was working a special unit. They were going after a murder suspect, working one of these plainclothes details. They boxed the car in, bad tactics. I'm going to talk about tactics because this is why we're having problems in other cities in America. So bring me back to tactics, police tactics and training. So they boxed his car in. One thing the LAPD is a lot of things. It's a tactical police department. And it's a felony as a police officer. You box a car in, and boxing the car means that you got a police car behind, the suspect car in the middle, and you jump in front. What you do is you create a situation where there will be a shooting. And that was a shooting incident. So the suspect wanted for murder, got out, engaged the officers. But when the officer who boxed in the suspect who was in front engaged the officer, he struck one of our officers, Officer Hill. He was still alive when I arrived here. July of 2013, within 2 months, he died. Kind of a little bit of a secret. Nobody wanted to talk about it, but it was our gunfire that killed Officer Hill. And I went on the news and I said it because it was true. Now, did the officer intentionally kill the officer? Of course not. The circumstances, murder suspect, it was tragic. The days of old, we don't tell our dirty secrets. We're not going to talk about this. I told his wife, who didn't know. There was a lot of rumor around the department where we think that an officer's round struck the officer. It was the truth. And I told the truth. So, thank you, sir. And I will tell you, it was difficult. Anytime there's a loss of life, anytime an officer uses deadly force, it is never easy. I've had to look in the eyes of those parents. That is not easy. That is not easy. So, Officer Hill, now I'm going to fast because I don't want to monopolize. You may have questions I want to give, certainly if you're off a chance. So fast forward to Dearborn. Okay? Young man shot by the Dearborn Police Department in the city of Detroit. So I find there's an officer involved in shooting, and while it didn't involve Detroit police officers, it was important for me to be there. In fact, initially because it was an outside agency, I didn't know all the facts, but I knew I needed to be there because likewise, and I know you're very familiar with the Kellum case, that was a federal agent that was involved in the shooting. And I said, well, the federal authorities are going to investigate that. We're going to be there to support. The community said, we want Chief Craig to respond here. And I did that. But there were some things that came out. So I want us to hold Kellum for a moment, but I want to fast forward over to Dearborn. So when I got there, drawing on my experience of how we treat shooting incidents and how we communicate, I learned there was a struggle. I never said, and would have never said, it was a struggle over the officer's gun because I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And for me to say that would be inappropriate. But what was proper, that there was contact with the gentleman. There was a struggle because the uniform, the officer's uniform was soiled. Certainly, the subject's clothing was torn. So there was some sort of struggle, right or wrong. The community wanted to know what happened. So they said, well, the chief should have never said anything. The chief had to say something. To say nothing, again, as I said earlier, is not an option today. Again, it may not be all. Now, I get there's more times than not a rush to judgment. Indict the cop now. He shot this man who was suffering from mental illness. The cop must be wrong. So say something, say it was wrong, and let's get on with it. Can't do it. Just like in a private citizen, in a homicide, you might hear me say, a person of interest. A person of interest. Because we may not know that this person, we may even know that the person pulled the trigger, but we just may not have corroborating information or evidence that would support that we know that. But we're trying to solve a case, so we push a picture out of a wanted suspect quickly, and it shows people here in Detroit do what people say Detroiters don't do. They call the police department, and they let us know who it is. That's how we arrested that lady at the gas station, shot, fired into the car. 2 hours, we put her picture out in custody. That man that kidnapped that little boy and murdered him, put his picture out, 2 hours, and well, that was about a 24-hour case. He was in custody within a day. So my point is, getting in front of a camera is certainly a necessary strategy in bringing closure, creating trust. Because if I lie to you, there is no trust, there is no credibility. I'm asked to pack my bags and go back to the West Coast where it never snows. Just joking. But I feel that strongly about it. But if I can't say everything, is not a matter of disrespect, because every officer involved in a shooting incident deserves what any other citizen is. That's something called due process. Even though the video may be compelling, it says what he did was wrong. You all saw the video out in the South where the gentleman was running and the officer fired and shot him in the back. How do you justify that? And I guess now we can say the process worked because he was convicted. But I mean, early on, looking at the video, you said, well, a lot of people didn't come out, but he was running away. So was there an imminent threat to that officer's life as he ran away? No. Of course not. And so those are the issues. And it's a very dicey place to be when you're trying to protect the rights of everyone, but also communicate with you. So the Cincinnati model does work, because getting out in front and talking about an incident, and I can't control what happens after I take a case and give it to the prosecutor. You know, we will work very hard, very quickly to get that case over to the prosecutor's office so you can have some conclusion. I don't charge. That's solely up to the prosecutor. And so that case out of Dearborn has been with the prosecutor's office. The Detroit Police Department doesn't have it. The Michigan State, that second case involving I don't know if she was suffering from mental illness, the shooting in the mall. That case was investigated by MSP and is in the hands of the prosecutor. I don't have it. Let me just say this. All of you in this room want your police officers to be safe. And when a police officer is shot at or is faced with a bona fide imminent threat, you support an officer staying alive and going home just fine. I believe it.
That's right.
I also believe, thank you. But it's important for us to approach this in a way that makes sense. Because when you look at a video, and I don't even want to touch the other situation, because clearly, this girlfriend, I'm still amazed at her poise. She says in a very calm, probably shocked. You know, you shot my boyfriend. All he was doing was reaching for his wallet. CPL holder. And so that's another conversation, maybe not for this meeting, because Detroit, some of you may or may not know this, Wayne County ranks 4 in the country with individuals who carry concealed pistols. Wow. Number 4, Wayne County. I mean, more than some of these states that we thought like Texas, Wayne County. So here's something to reflect on. Detroit police officers every day stop law-abiding Detroiters who are carrying guns every single day. And they do it in a constitutional way. And I'm not saying that we're not going to make mistakes. You know, as Ralph knows this, as police chief, we're only one incident away from something bad. We're in a high-risk occupation. Bad things are going to happen. How we address it is what's important. But Detroit, CPL holders, officers making stops every single day. And this is the other thing. When you look at the Detroit Police Department, again, predates me. This is a department that the officers are not equipped with tasers. Now, I grew up with tasers. I'm going to tell you, some of you may be anti-taser, but I'd rather use a taser than have an officer use a gun. Taser before a gun. Sometimes you limit an officer's off.
Taser.
Because you know what, I got to tell you, and we're ready, you know, now that we've rolled out the body-worn cameras, I think we're going to be a national leader in the integration between in-car and body-worn. We're excited about this. But right after that, I'm telling you, I want to really get into this conversation about tasers and what it can mean to save lives. And I really welcome you, and Ralph haven't been, I want to welcome you to come in and help us with carving out, and I mean this, a policy is one of the most rigorous in this country. I did it in Portland, Maine as a police chief. They didn't want tasers, didn't have it. We put the most rigorous policy in place. That department now has tasers, and I can tell you time and again, lives were saved. And I know we've had conversations with the police commission about it. So we want to get through making sure we get this camera, but we really want to do this because we think it's the right thing to do, and it's going to have a profound impact on saving lives.
Chief, if I can add to this about tasers, there's another aspect of tasers in Detroit. We have to be very sensitive to this. When John England closed the Lafayette Clinic, the mental health issues that became criminalized because of violent behavior, because of mental health issues, there's a saying, if a hammer is the only tool you have in your toolbox, every problem is in there. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, which are advocates for mental health, they want us to have tasers. Because when you have that mental run, those are some of the most dangerous runs that our police officers encounter. And in some instances, the commands are confusing, the verbal commands don't make sense to them, depending on their medication. That taser is the difference between a necessary use of lethal force and a less than lethal force opportunity. So you really need to rally around the chief in support of that. And Chief Craig is honest enough to tell you, it is not a 100% guarantee that someone will not die as a result of a taser. There can be some mitigating circumstances, but our job is to mitigate the risk. The lower we can make the risk. And there's something else that needs to be said. And I gotta say it this way, because I don't necessarily believe this, but Detroit is believed to be one of the most violent cities in the country. But look at this. Less than 300 homicides last year, 0 by the police.
Yeah.
Because you can have all the cameras in the world, all you're gonna do is get a front row seat to first-degree murder. But it's the policy, it's the leadership, it's the tactic, it's the community expectations, and then the cameras reinforce. Now, the cameras more often than not exonerate officers. They exonerate officers because it keeps everybody honest. Because there are some citizens, y'all know there are some of them, some of our cousins and them, that exaggerate because they, you know, come on, don't have this family. We got some cousins.
Our voicemail is full of
those.
They did this to him. We don't even know why.
I ain't did nothing. I don't know what that is. 4 o'clock in the morning, crack house.
Not my baby. Not my baby. Not my baby.
So there's a level of accountability for both sides of the equation. But do this, and I want you to look at the statistics. Albuquerque, New Mexico, they kill more folks than the law allows. Now, and Chief, I would encourage your planning folks to look at this over the past 4 or 5 years. The number of serious felony arrests that the Detroit Police Department have made, and the number of officer-involved shootings that have resulted in a citizen's death. There was a 2-year period while I was chief where there was only 1. And that one was when a man walked into the 6th precinct with a shotgun, and nobody in the world questioned the authenticity of the police taking him out. Now, it seems to be counterintuitive because we're hard on our police department in Detroit. And we both welcome the accountability. Neither one of us ran from the cameras nor the mic. We both stood there, I believe, Chief, and we face our public. But what needs to be said is that for Detroit to be considered to have the level of violence that it does, to be number 4 in the country of CPL holders, and there are not those deadly encounters that you see all across the country, people should be coming here to find out what is right here.
Thank you.
We need to do
And just to add in, when you talked about, because it's something that the mayor of Minnesota, and I was kind of shocked by the statement, he said, I believe that if the CPL holder would have been white, he would not have been shot. Whoa! So what did you just say about that police department? Every white police officer is a racist. Or, you know, that's the inference. And so, that's an issue. But when you look at Detroit, we probably, and I don't have the data to support it, but I can probably guess, Detroit probably has more black CPL holders than anywhere in the country. Right here in Detroit. And our police officers have contacts with African-American CPL holders every single day. If the Detroit News is still here, that should be a story that should be written. Because that tells a story about this police department. Shortly, but I invite you, and thank you for, wanting to explore, tasers. The mayor and I have had a conversation about it. He understands I'm passionate. It gives our officer an additional tool. We certainly want you to be part of crafting a policy, certainly with the police commissioner, Burke, he left. I think that's critical.
I think it's going to be very important, and I've oftentimes said, and we talk about it all the time, and Nan, that when we see these shootings, we always wonder, well, how come they just didn't use a taser if they felt that bad about it? So, I think that is certainly something we should explore, and most importantly is exploring how you
and Ralph's
make
idea,
those.
Ralph hit on something that was so important. I know you had your team make note of it. I think that's critical, because if an organization doesn't have or has policy, it's like pursuits. We just recently enhanced rigor to our pursuit policy, because I'm a firm believer we should not be pursuing anyone in the city of Detroit for a traffic violation. And because what sense does it make to travel at 70, 80 miles an hour through neighborhoods where children play? I'm going to tell you, the bad thing's going to happen. Now, the state police has a different policy. I think they're revising theirs. There's nothing that important. Get the plate, back off.
What I want to do now is,
Can I say this?
This contract with the community, I'm talking about the community collaborative, what they have in Cincinnati, what that says to everyone. This is an agreement between the community and the police department, mutually agreed upon. And we're family, we're in it together. And, even when we talk about how I respond to the media, one of the things that was baked into this community collaborative was the whole issue of getting out and talking about officer-involved shootings. Of course, as you know, in Cincinnati, that was the key issue. Black men are being killed. We don't know why. Nobody's talking to us, like so many police departments historically have done. And that's why Cincinnati, really, in my mind, has been a model. So there were a lot of things I took from Cincinnati. But I think one model I'm a big believer, and I've talked about this publicly, is what about if you want to take what we're doing now and then take it to the next level? We got, neighborhood police officers that I think do a phenomenal job. Some of you work directly with them. But what if we entered into our own contract? That's right. This is what we get the police commission involved in that conversation. This is what we expect from our police department. What does that do to the relationship? Because you are a stakeholder.
What you expect from us too.
Exactly.
We know what